The Law of One, Session 9, September 9, 1982.
96.0 RA, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now.
96.1 Questioner. Could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? I am Ra. The physical energy deficit is significantly greater than the last asking. There has been substantive lessening also of the vital energies. Although the prerequisite degree of energy for mental/emotional distortions of normalcy are yet available. 96.2 Questioner. Could you tell me the cause of the lessening of the physical and vital energies?
I am Ra. We found the need of examining the mental configurations of the instrument before framing an answer due to our reluctance to infringe upon its free will. Those concepts relating to the spiritual contemplation of personal catalyst have been appreciated by the entity, so we may proceed. This entity has an habitual attitude which is singular, that is, when there is some necessity for action, the entity is accustomed to analyzing the catalyst in terms of service and determining a course. There was a most unusual variation in this configuration of attitude, and this instrument beheld the dwelling which is to be inhabited by this group. The instrument perceived those elementals and beings of astral character of which we have spoken. The instrument desired to be of service by achieving the domicile in question, but found its instincts reacting to the unwelcome presences. The division of mind configuration was increased by the continuing catalyst of lack of control. Had this entity been able to physically begin cleansing the dwelling, the, shall we say, opening would not have occurred. Although this entity attempted clear communication upon this matter, and although each in the support group did likewise, the amount of Blu-ray work necessary to uncover and grasp the nature of the catalyst was not effected. Therefore, there was an opening, quite rare for this mind/body/spirit complex, and into this opening the one which greets you moved and performed what may be considered to be the most potent of its purely magical manifestations to this present nexus, as you know, time. It is well that this instrument is not distorted towards what you may call hysteria, for the potential of this working was such that had the instrument allowed fear to become greater than the will to persevere when it could not breathe, each attempt at respiration would have been even more nearly impossible until the suffocation occurred which was desired by the one which greets you in its own way. Thus the entity would have passed from this incarnation.
96.3 Questioner. Does this threat, shall I say, still exist, and, if so, is there something we can do to alleviate it?
I am Ra. This threat no longer exists, if you wish to phrase this greeting in this manner. The communication which was effected by the scribe and then by the questioner did close the opening and enable the instrument to begin assimilating the catalyst it had received.
96.4 Questioner. The instrument asks, since this has to do with that house, is the house capable of being transformed by the painting and cleaning we are able to undertake? That is, we don't plan to put down all new carpets. Are the carpets that are there now acceptable? I want to either bring this particular house up to acceptable limits. You say it will be neutral after we do the salting. I have only a concern with the conditions for our work here. The physical location isn't that important. In fact, I don't consider this important at all. If the house is not capable of being brought up to good conditions that will afford us no problems of the type we've experienced, then I may select a different one. It's not that important. Would Ra comment on this?
I am Ra. It is, of course, the preference of this group which is the only consideration in the situation for contact with Ra. The domicile in question has already been offered a small amount of blessing by this group through its presence and, as we have previously stated, each of your days spent in love, harmony, and thanksgiving will continue transforming the dwelling. It is correct, as we have previously stated, that physical cleanliness is most important. Therefore, the efforts shall be made to most thoroughly cleanse the dwelling. In this regard it is to be noted that neither in the dwelling as a whole wherein you now reside or in the chamber of this working is there an absence of your dust, earth, and other detritus which is in toto called dirt. If the intention is to clean, as much as is physically possible, the location, the requirements for physical cleanliness are fulfilled. It is only when a lower astral entity has, shall we say, placed portions of itself in the so-called dirt that care should be taken to remove the sentient being. These instructions we have given. May we note that just as each entity strives in each moment to become more nearly one with the Creator but falls short, just so is physical spotlessness striven for but not achieved. In each case, the purity of intention and thoroughness of manifestation are appreciated. The variance between the attempt and the goal is never noted and may be considered unimportant.
96.5 Questioner. The sequence of events that I am considering, which may be easily changed, is first the painting, then the cleaning, then the moving in of the furniture, then the salting and use of garlic. Is this sequence as good as any other sequence? Or would a different sequence be better for those events?
I am raw. Any sequence which results in the cleansings is acceptable. It is to be noted that the thresholds are not to be crossed during the cleansing. Since such stricture upon use of the limen may affect your considerations, we make note of this.
96.6 Questioner. Was the unusual sound on the instrument's tape recorder that occurred while she was trying to record her singing a greeting from our fifth density? Negative. Associate.
I am raw. No. Rather, it was a greeting from a malfunctioning electronic machine.
96.7 Questioner. There was no catalyst for the machine to malfunction from any of the negative entities then. Is that right? I mean, it just was a function only of the random malfunction of the machine. Am I correct?
I am raw. No.
96.8 Questioner. What was the origin of this malfunction?
I am raw. There are two difficulties with the machine. Firstly, this instrument has a strong effect upon electromagnetic and electronic machines and instruments, and likely, if continued use of these is desired, should request that another handle the machines. Also, there was some difficulty from physical interference due to the material you call tape catching upon it joining, what you would call, buttons when the play button, as you call it, is depressed.
96.9 Questioner. How is Ra able to know all of this information? This is a somewhat unimportant question, but it is just amazing to me that Ra is able to know all of these trivial things. What do you do? Move in time/space and inspect the problem, or what?
I am raw. Your former supposition is correct, your latter unintelligible to us.
96.10 Questioner. You mean you move in time/space and inspect the situation to determine the problem? Is that correct?
I am raw. This is so.
96.11 Questioner. Sorry to ask the unimportant question. I was thinking of the future readers, and that they would be totally mystified as to how much. Was there a significance with respect to the hawk that landed the other day just outside of the kitchen window?
I am raw. This is correct. We may note that we find it interesting that queries offered to us are often already known. We assume that our confirmation is appreciated.
96.12 Questioner. This seems to be connected with the concept of the birds being messengers in the tarot, and this is a demonstration of this concept in the tarot. And I was wondering about the mechanics, you might say, of this type of a message. I assumed the hawk was a messenger, and I assumed that as I thought of the possible meaning of this with respect to our activities, I was, in the state of free will, getting a message through the appearance of this very unusual bird. Unusual, I say, in that it came so close. I would be very interested to know the origin of the message. Of course, the origin is the one creator. The mechanics of this are very mystifying to me. Would Ra comment on this, please?
I am raw. No.
96.13 Questioner. I was afraid that you would say that. Am I correct in assuming that this is the same type of communication as depicted in card number 3 in the Catalyst of the Mind?
I am raw. We may not comment due to the law of confusion. There is an acceptable degree of confirmation of items known, but when the recognized subjective sigil is waived and the message not clear, then it is that we must remain silent.
96.14 Questioner. Would Ra comment on the technique of blessing the water we will use to sprinkle on the salt? I assume we just sprinkle the water directly off of our fingertips onto the line of salt, and also how much, in general, should be sprinkled on the salt, how wet we should get it. This is trivial, but I'd like to get it right.
I am raw. The blessing of the water may be that one we have previously given, or it may be that one which is written within the liturgy of this instrument's distortion of the worship of the one Creator, or it may simply be obtained from what you call your Catholic Church in the form of holy water. The intention of blessing is the notable feature of blessed water. The water may be sprinkled not so that all salt is soaked, but so that a goodly portion has been dampened. This is not a physical working. The substances need to be seen in their ideal state so that water may be seen to be enabling the salt.
96.15 Questioner. I plan to redraw the tarot cards, eliminating extraneous additions by those who came after Ra's initial giving. And I would like quickly to go through those things that I intend to eliminate from each card we've gone over, and ask Ra if there is anything else that should be eliminated to make the cards as they were when they were originally drawn, before the astrological and other appendages were added. I would eliminate all of the letters around the edge of the card, with the possible exception of the number of the card 1, 2, 3, etc. That would be the case for all of the cards. I think the exterior lettering and numbering. In card number 1, I would eliminate the star at the upper right-hand corner. Eliminate the wand in the magician's hand. I understand that the sphere remains, but I am not really sure where it should be. Would Ra comment on that, please?
I am Ra. Firstly, the elimination of letters is acceptable. Secondly, the elimination of stars is acceptable in all cases. Thirdly, the elimination of the wand is appropriate. Fourthly, the sphere may be seen to be held by the thumb and index and second finger. Fifthly, we would note that it is not possible to offer what you may call a pure deck, if you would use this term, of tarot due to the fact that when these images were first drawn there was already distortion in various and sundry ways, mostly cultural. Sixthly, although it is good to view the images without the astrological additions, it is to be noted that the more general positions, phases, and characteristics of each concept complex are those which are significant. The removal of all distortion is unlikely and, to a great extent, unimportant.
96.16 Questioner. I didn't think we could ever remove all distortion, but some of this is very difficult to interpret because of the quality of the drawing. And as we go through these cards, we get a better idea of what some of these things are and how they should be drawn. And I think that we can improve greatly on the quality of the card and also remove some of the extraneous material that is misleading on the second card. In addition to removing the letters and stars, I assume we should, at the center of the female form here, where something that looks a little like a crux ansata is, we should change that. Is that correct?
I am Ra. We perceive an incomplete query. Please re-question.
96.17 Questioner. I think that I should put a crux ansata in place of this thing that looks a little like a crux ansata on the front of the female. Is that correct?
I am Ra. This is correct.
96.18 Questioner. And as to the thing that she wears on her head, that, I believe, is a bit confusing. What should it be shaped like?
I am Ra. We shall allow the student to ponder this point. We note that although it is an astrologically based addition to the concept complex, it is not entirely unacceptable when viewed with a certain feeling. Therefore, we suggest, O student, that you choose whether to remove the crown or to name its meaning in such a way as to enhance the concept complex.
96.19 Questioner. Would Ra please give me any information possible on the ratios of the dimensions, and the dimensions and shape of the crux ansata as it should be made or drawn?
I am Ra. No.
96.20 Questioner. Card number 3, we will remove all of the letters, etc., and the stars, and I assume that it would be advisable to remove all these little cups around the outside of the rays representing the sun. Is that correct?
I am Ra. Yes.
96.21 Questioner. In card number 4, we will remove the letters around the outside and all of the stars. And it seems that again we have a situation of removing the wand and putting the sphere in the hand. Is that correct?
I am Ra. Again, this is a matter of choice. Though astrological in nature, this particular scepter has possibilities of relevancy in the originally intended concept complex. This instrument is experiencing some small lack of that distortion which you call the proper breathing due to the experience of your near past, as you perceive it. Therefore, as this instrument has requested a substantial enough amount of transferred energy to be retained that it might effect a comfortable re-entry, we shall at this time ask for one more query, after noting the following. We did not complete our statement upon the dimensions of the crux ansata. It is given in many places. There are decisions to be made as to which drawing of this image is the appropriate one. We may, of course, suggest viewing the so-called Great Pyramid if the puzzle is desired. We do not wish to work this puzzle. It was designed in order that in its own time it be deciphered. In general, of course, this image has the meaning previously stated.
96.22 Questioner. Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact?
I am Ra. Continue in harmony, communication, praise, and thanksgiving. We would note that this instrument's distortions would be lessened were it to refrain from the speaking to some extent for a diurnal period or perhaps two if the difficulty remains. We would also recommend against the activity such as running which would cause rapid respiration. This after effect of the greeting is not necessarily long-lasting. However, as this instrument has some blood vessels in the forward regions of the skull, that is, the integument covering the skull, greatly swollen at this time, and since this instrument has the distortion known as the streptococcal infection, it is best to be full of care for a short period in order that the distortions do not catapult the entity into longer-term after effects. All is well. We find the alignment satisfactory. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and light of the Infinite One. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.